The biggest story in professional wrestling history. Vince McMahon has finally retired from WWE at the age of 77. Vince McMahon, again, who has been the driving force of not just WWE, but the entire wrestling industry, honestly, for the better part of the past 30 to 40 years, has called it quits. This is coming off of multiple uh, allegations of sexual harassment, workplace misconduct, sexual assault, as well as mismanagement of finances within the company. There is still an internal investigation that is going on in WWE. And I think that given what given the news that just came out about McMahon last night, it's safe to say that either those allegations or that investigation or other journalistic investigations that have really brought a lot of this to light don't paint McMahon in the best picture. Now, I want to get to the actual tweet that caused this firestorm last night. Vince McMahon tweeted that at 77, time for me to retire. Thank you, WWE Universe. Then, now, and forever, or forever together. Hashtag WWE, hashtag thankful. So that was Vince McMahon's big, not even the speech, that was just his statement publicly. There was also a statement that went out to WWE superstars where Vince, I read the statement. I'm not going to read it out here. It's on WWE's corporate website. You can go check it out. But it is a lengthy statement. And the crux of it is that while I built this thing, you are going to be the ones to keep WWE going. And we got to do whatever we can. You guys are brand ambassadors for the WWE brand and blah, blah, blah. A lot of corporate speak. He also threw in, you're going to miss. It's like, I know all of you are going to miss my calm, level-headed demeanor at Gorilla, which hilarious if you know anything about Vince McMahon. And also, in the last portion of it, he threw in a plug for WWE Friday Night SmackDown, which kind of makes you think they definitely knew that this statement was going to get leaked out to the public. So, I mean, that because why would you try to plug this for WWE superstars? It's crazy. They're already there. So a lot of people are asking about this decision, why it happened in the way it did, why did it break right before SmackDown or right at that moment. So the reason for that is that WWE really wanted to bury this as much as they could to kind of save the stock market or the stock price, I should say. The decision to release a statement on Friday afternoon was reportedly to avoid any fallout from media shareholders and WWE and the rest of the board, honestly. So the stock would kind of hold at what it was because stock market closes at 4 p.m. for the weekend on Friday. And then, it doesn't really have that much of an effect. It has a few days to die down, and the impact of the news won't shake and cause as much uncertainty as it would otherwise. Like if you did it on like a Monday or in the middle of the day on a weekday, those things for shareholders, those things for big corporate companies matter. Also reported from Mike Johnson, a PW insider, that McMahon privately decided to retire about a week ago, and one source saying around 10 days ago. So it seems like this isn't something that just kind of happened this week. Like a lot of things, it's been building for a while. I think when Vince went out there and did the whole showboating thing and came out there on SmackDown and Raw the following week, when the original Wall Street Journal report came out, I think then I truly believed that Vince McMahon thought that he was going to get away with this, that nothing was going to happen, because the brash demeanor that he exuded in that moment was one of just, that scene from Wolf of Wall Street where Jordan Belfort is being forced to retire, and then he goes up there, and he goes, I'm not freaking leaving. I'm not freaking leaving. I think, there's a weird part of me that believes that maybe there's a part of Vince that was like, he was supposed to go out there and say a goodbye or maybe like whatever, but then he was like, you know what? I'm not leaving. Then, now, together forever. And he walks back and he says, F him when he gets backstage, reportedly. So there's that. I think like again, I think Vince McMahon was just this was too much. I think we finally found like the line because Vince McMahon is the guy who no matter what, everybody, including myself, thought this dude, he's never going to retire. The only conceivable way that Vince McMahon would not be the driving force of WWE, both as a product and as a company, would be if either he dies or he sells. And I know in recent years there's been a lot more talk about them selling the company. And now with Stephanie McMahon being the CEO alongside Nick Khan, their co-CEOs, and with Triple H being brought back into the fold as the EVP of Talent Relations, it changes things. It really changed the dynamics. We don't know. I don't believe that Vince has divested his stocks yet, so he still, I believe, does own the majority of the shares and likely will for a while. But the incentive to sell has never been better because at this point, he's not going to be running creative. He's not going to be in the office. He's done. Um, Whether or not that happens in the next year or few months, I don't know, but I think we're closer to a sale than we've literally ever been. This is like, I would actually say the chances are actually that Vince is going to sell his options like within the next year or so. But the other thing that kind of comes out of this is what's the future of people like Bruce Pritchard? What's the future of people like Kevin Dunn, who've been there for a while, who are Vince McMahon guys? CM Punk likes to talk about Vince McMahon surrounding himself with bootlicking yes men. Those are two of those guys, But yeah, I mean, their future, I don't know. Kevin Dunn, I feel like we all kind of know that eventually, with Triple H kind of coming back into the fold as EVP of Talent Relations and Stephanie McMahon being there, there's a good chance that Kevin Dunn is going to be out sooner rather than later. I think now you have a chance to bring in people like Gabe Sapolsky, or bring in people like Paul Heyman to help run creative. Bring in people even like Jeff Jarrett to help run creative. Like there are a few people who have the ability to book and write a TV show and write good ones. Like people forget Jeff Jarrett was actually when he wasn't booking like Jeff Jarrett and King of the Mountain and crap like that. TNA was like he was responsible for some of the TNA's best booking back in like 2007. So I mean he's had a good run. There's Paul Heyman is still a creatively intelligent mind. Gabe Sapolsky I think is in that same vein, and you could go farther than that. But I do think that at a certain point we're going to see things change. They're not going to take into effect like this week. They're not going to take into effect next week. WWE is a corporately structured company. These things take time and they're going to be planned out. Does that mean we're going to be privy to a lot of those plans before they're released? No. They could be planning something for 6 months and then announce it a week before all those changes go into effect. And the theory is, the non-Austin theory, is that, it wasn't 6 months, but like the plans to change NXT to NXT 2.0 were kind of happening behind the scenes for a while, and then they just kind of announced it out of the blue, and we're like, oh, in 2 weeks, colors. So there's that. We'll see. But last thing I'll say about this, and I do think that this is worth to note. No matter what you think of Vince McMahon, the idea of him not being I think driving force is the best way to explain what Vince McMahon is to WWE, because creative was all him. He was the chairman. He was the CEO. And whether or not he was doing all the day-to-day duties that a CEO would do, he was still the final say over everything. So driving force, I think, fits. It's the biggest story in the history of wrestling going back 40 years, at least. The biggest story. Maybe WCW is the only one. The closure of WCW is the only one that comes close. This is that story. Like, the idea of Vince McMahon, like, it is impossible to imagine WWE without Vince McMahon. Yet, we're not going to have to. It's going to happen. And I just think it's bonkers. It actually is bonkers. Like I explained this on the stream I did last night. Go check that out in the archives, by the way. But for someone who's been following wrestling for the majority of his life, the idea of professional wrestling, or of WWE specifically, being run by other people other than Vince McMahon full time is something that is inconceivable. It's also a breath of fresh air. It could be, at least creatively, if they go in the right direction. Could be even a bigger disaster than there already was. But I mean, I don't think there's really an argument of whether or not Vince had to go. He obviously had to go. The second those allegations, the second, especially that second story came out, where, actually, no, even the first story, actually, the second that Wall Street Journal story came out, Vince McMahon should not have been allowed anywhere near talent. He should not have been allowed anywhere near his employees. Absolutely not. It's a detriment to them. It would have been a detriment to the company. And like, you can't have someone who's accused of doing the things that Vince McMahon is doing, of using the power and having evidence with these NDAs that these things had happened. You can't have someone like that day to day, behind the scenes, actually interacting and being that close to talent. You can't. But they did, and now he's gone, though. So we'll have to see what happens. Again, we're going to be talking about this a lot over the next few days. Let me know what you guys think of this news. Hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.